let's put a little bit of perspective, object of life, okay? Why there is a whole teaching around this things, because there's a sense of a higher purpose to what we're doing here, and that has been identified, for example, Sat, Chit, Ananda, truth, consciousness, and bliss, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Also identified as Jivan Mukta, while alive, Jivan in the life, cutting Mukat, cutting the root of attachments and false identification with the world. Okay, so this is part of the objective, to come to realize who we really are, free of the false identification. Which in Kundalini Yoga mantras we also have that little phrase, God and me and God are one. Then realize your true nature. You are of that divine intelligence and light and frequency and vibration of the creative force of all things. So that's where we want to get to. Now, because of the title was Niyama, I'm assuming most people, if they've signed up for this class, must have heard the word, otherwise they would not have come along. So it's part of the Ashtanga. Ashta means 8, and Anga means a limb. So 8 limbs. So that's interesting in the sense that you think of a wheel with 8 things coming out of it, or a deity with 8 arms on her, and there's 8 limbs. So although it's written in a very linear way, the 8 limbs of yoga from Patanjali, it doesn't necessarily have to be approached in a linear way. Both work. Linear exists, and there's something which is like you can go from any angle and reach the whole thing. But it's interesting why 8. The Buddhists have this 8-fold path on the path to liberation and realization. And the American Indians, their healing circle has 8 points on it where the elders sit on the healing circle. The trigrams, the I Ching also have 8 trigrams. So there's something very powerful about 8, and we know there are also many mantras, Ashtanga mantras with 8 parts. So something about 8, that road to infinity, which is symbolized by the number 8. And Patanjali, of course, joined that, what might we call it, the club of the 8, by giving his own yogic version of the 8 limbs, 8 steps, 8 qualities, 8 aspects that one has to take on board, take into account, and practice. Okay, so yama means measure. Probably means other things as well, but let's start with that. So for example, pranayama means to measure the breath. Okay, measure, or you might say moderate or regulate the breathing, the flow of the prana, pranayama. So we have yama and we have niyama. And I will show a little diagram in a moment. Good to be clear at this point that this idea of regulate or measure also, now I don't know how that translates, but also has a sense of moderation. To do what you're doing in moderation, to moderate the flow of your life, of your action, of your thoughts, your breathing. So that these are not practices that are meant to be done in the extreme, okay, but done in moderation. So I think it's a useful attitude or perspective to have from the start. Physical body, 5 senses, 5 limbs, 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head. 5 senses: smell, taste, sight, touch, and listening. And body made of 5 elements, 5 tattvas we call them. So my reflection here is that there's some correspondence, and I'm not saying it's an easy one to identify, but why this 5 keeps recurring? Why were 5 yamas, 5 niyamas? Why not 6 or 3 or 18 or something else? And also, if you study yoga, you'll know 5 pranas, or the 5 vayus, the 5 winds that blow through the body and serve different functions in the body. So we're taking this model of 5, and then going here, these are the yamas. And I'm not going to go in detail because our topic is niyamas, but just so you know what they are. But they are moderating your relationship out into the world. So you see the arrows going out, ahimsa, no harm to the others, yeah, asteya, no stealing from others, satya, truthful, be truthful in your communication, aparigraha, this means to non-possessive, not to take and hold and not let go, mine, mine, mine. And brahmacharya, which is normally translated as celibacy, but very interesting to think that it also means Brahma. Brahma is a god, and charya is how you act, your character. Charya, I think the word character maybe even comes from this root Sanskrit term charya, which is about your action and your behavior. So to behave godly behavior, brahmacharya, but it usually implies some kind of abstention, renouncing. Normally people think of sex, but it might be with the diet, it might be with not swearing, cursing, some kind of abstention. So these are the 5 yamas, moderating your relationship with the world. Going to go here. These are what is called the 5 passions. So you might have heard of them also, the 5 passions. Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar, that's their name in Gurmukhi in Sanskrit. So what are they? Lust. Lust also means willfulness. I want, I want, I want. That's the first one. And then when you can't get what you want, you get angry. To try to control and manipulate getting what you want. And these come from the inside. So you see the way they've drawn them. They go out and they corrupt your relationship to the world around you and to yourself. Of course, you can turn that upon yourself to be angry at yourself. Yeah, this can also happen. Yeah. Then comes greed. When you do get, you want more, more, and more. And then not only that, you get attached to what you have. You don't want to let it go. You want to share it. So this is also holding on internally. Then what I call the crown of the 5 passions is the pride. It's called ahankar. Ahankar is made of 2 parts. Ahang, God, it's a little bit nasal. God. God is action, doing. Ahang is about yourself. So it's the illusion that you are the doer. That all what you have in your life, your beautiful body, your nice car, your whatever has come to you in life, that you are the doer of it. And of course that takes away gratitude. Yeah? It dissolves the possibility of having gratitude for life, because I should be grateful to anybody. I did it. I'm the achiever. So I get all the credit. That is the crown of the 5 passions. Okay? So this is a big thing, because part of the work of yoga is actually to transform our 5 senses and the 5 tattvas in a way that they become friends for the soul. Because all of these things which we've just described here, these are not friends to your soul. They're absolutely getting in the way. They are corrupting the environment. They obscure your soul, you could say. They put a veil over your soul. Okay. So what we're going to do, the yamas, okay, they are internal things. Niyama, ni, in this case, ni implies inner, okay? Inner processes of moderation within myself, of me, with me, so that the 5 passions, or the Buddhists call them the 5 demons, will not corrupt me, okay? So the niyamas are working inwardly to work towards the self-realization, to the awakening of the sleeping soul. The tendency is for the true being in us to be sleepy, and our everyday identity to take over and run the show. Okay. And so therefore 5 passions, 5 moderations to help us with that. Okay, and these are the names of them written there. The first one that's described in Patanjali is saucha, and then comes santosha. Saucha, just very briefly, and then we'll go in detail. Saucha is purity. Santosha is to be content and peaceful. And tapa is it's a disciplined, enthusiastic discipline, you could say. And then comes svadhyaya, which is contemplation. Well, again, we'll go in the details. So that generally means to get into a study and contemplative approach. And then here, Ishvari, Prani, Dana. Ishvari is mean God. Prani is you are a prani because you have breath. Dana is a giving. So giving to God. Okay, so let me just check. Okay, this is a little homework that I offer to you. We'll go in details, as I said, but you could start it now, but this is a work, ongoing work for anybody. That you're going to take each of these 5 niyamas and you explore how it might manifest in your life, very honestly, in your environment, in your action, what you're doing with this physical body, and then in your speech, your communication, and finally, your mind and your way of thinking, okay? Because they are operative, they are significant on all the levels. I'm sure many of the commentaries will give you examples of how that might manifest on these 3 different levels. So we're here just to get an essential grasp of what these niyamas are, and why they're important, how relevant they are, and then it's your work to make it personal and go deeper into that. Perhaps one little thing I'm going to indicate, and I'll just quickly draw it there to show you. So what you've seen so far, you've seen it as a star, but I'm also going to put circle around it, just to indicate that although the Patanjali goes through a certain order, and we will do the same in our deeper reflection, but they all interact. Okay, so each one can have an interaction with the others in various different ways. Okay, each one relates to the other 4, and any of the other 4 can also relate to this one. Okay, it can be affected by an improvement in one area, will lead to an improvement in this area. A problem develops in one area, you lose the contentment of life, and then it's going to affect one of the other niyamas, are going to be affected. Okay, and that becomes a domino effect. At the moment something happens in one area, then it's going to start everywhere. Problem here, and it's just going to start going everywhere and affecting everything. It's going to go way around, and the whole system is going to go out of harmony. Okay, so that's just wanted to give a little indication about their interrelatedness. So let's remember the purpose of the life. I'm going to describe it a little bit differently now. Is it would be like to realize your own true nature. And I'm going to express that in different ways. Think like how a grain of sand can come to realize that it is not different from the desert that it is in. How a drop of water, realizing its true nature, can suddenly feel like, oh, then I'm the same as this whole ocean that I'm in. Like the spark from the fire can realize that it is not different from the whole fire that it came from. Same with the human, the breather in us can realize that it is part of the cosmic breath, cosmic breathing. The whole galaxies have been studied in astronomy by that they expand and they collapse and they become a star. And our breath expands and collapses, but do we release the light in us? And the same on the level of the speaker, that the speaker in us is not different from the original word. In the beginning was the word that created the creation, and that we are that and we are one with that. So the Atma, in yogic language, that would mean the Atma, soul, and the Paramatma, the supreme soul, and the individual soul realizing its nature, its true nature. Of course, to do that, we have to accept the individualization. Yoga, in our practice, particularly in Kundalini Yoga, there's a lot of work which is actually affirming the I. And this may seem to go contrary to some versions of Indian wisdom and knowledge about the oneness, and there's no individual I, and it's just an illusion. And it's not wrong, it's just two ways around the same path. You can go into the cosmic zero by just dissolving any I at all, but there's not you to know you've done it. And we propose in our practice number 11, which is 10 plus 1, which is going to be the individual, the point, the 0 point, and the cosmic totality. And so to achieve that, God and me and God, there has to be an individualization. And that, again, reminds me about moderation, that sometimes these practices of austerities are taken to an extreme, and a kind of eliminating of the I to such an extent that there'll be no glory, there'll be no moment of discovery and realization. Okay, so, but on the path to accept the individualization, of course, there's many traps of Maya, of the ego, the superego, the spiritual ego, the false identity, the ahamkar that we mentioned. So there are many dangers on the way, and perhaps all the more reason for the yamas and the niyamas. A number of commentaries will say that these are like prerequisites as well. So practice of a hatha yoga, working with the asanas and the pranayamas, are very much could just feed the ego if the yamas and niyamas are not practiced. These 5 exterior and 5 interior things is like you take a mudra, this closing off of one hand here, and then the other hand being open to the world, yeah? Not something like that. There's a meditation where you do one hand like that, and the other hand, yeah? So there's a closing and there's an opening. There are different versions of these things where 5 are working on the inside and 5 are how you relate to the world. So, and we're looking at the inner. A couple of other comments to say about it, okay? We understand basically the law of karma, not in the sense of some old-fashioned diversion like punishment, oh, it's my karma, but meaning action has reaction. Anything we do, don't do, has consequence. So although I'm not the ultimate doer, and whatever practice we do is always taken into a balance with the grace of God, and many forces work upon us, the planets and the climate and our ancestors and so on. So my contribution to my own experience and my own journey of realization may seem small in front of all the forces working on me. But in small is all, and the smallest action can make a tremendous big difference. So we should not underestimate that. We should not say, oh, what can I do? At the same time, we don't go to, I can create my own reality, whatever I believe becomes true, etc., because actually that's not the case either. These are extreme ways of thinking. But the idea of a yama is moderate, having things in harmony and in balance. There's some part is mine, and there's some part not mine. And I am to explore and to know what is mine to do, take my responsibility, and do it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm on this journey to come back to the innate, original nature, the remembering of my true self, the me within me, and prepared to take this responsibility to build. You've heard of the 7 steps to happiness, I guess. Commitment gives you character and gives you dignity, gives you divinity. You don't do character, you don't do divinity or anything like that. You hold to your commitment. So these practices actually are a very good way to get on with that. Yeah? You want to say, okay, I want to do 7 steps to heaven. I want to do commitment. What do I do? And the yamas and niyamas guide you to that. Okay? And they are, again, we said the groundwork, the base. And they're not like, oh, I've done my yamas and I've done my niyamas and now I can go on to something else. No, they're continuous. As I develop with meditative practice, as I develop with whatever it is I'm doing, study of scripture and knowledge and all that kind of things, then it doesn't mean I put aside the yamas and niyamas. They're maintained and they are continuous throughout the journey. Okay? So they're interrelated, we've said that, they balance each other out, and that's important. That balancing is also, again, to prevent taking anyone to extreme. Okay, you practice all the 5 niyamas, not just, oh, I'm going to practice santosha. That's my thing. That's what I want to do, and it's going to become out of balance with the other 4. So that you work with them all together. Yeah. Okay. Now there's something paradoxical about them. Okay. Let's see if I can describe that. Yeah. I develop the capacity by practicing the capacity that I want to develop. Okay. Simple example I often apply here is I learned to swim by getting in the water. If I say, I can't get in the water because I haven't learned to swim, then I'm never going in the water and I'm never learning to swim. I have to go in the water, but I can't swim. You're not going to learn to swim unless you go in the water. So it seems like contradictory forces, but it's a paradoxical quality, and all of these yamas and niyamas, and we'll see, on our road, as we look at each of them, we'll try to identify some of those paradoxes. Okay.
Shiv, there was a question on if you could explain a bit more the paradox.
Yeah. Paradox is exactly something that's not explainable. Your normal mind will say black and white cannot sit in the same time and in the same place. But in a mystical sense, it is the case. And that is what you're going to see here. That things can go together. Something that doesn't seem to work, it works. And this, I would rather that as we go through the Niyamas, we're going to see those paradoxes in each of the Niyamas, and you will understand it from there rather than me talking abstractly about paradox. Yeah. And I know that somebody wants to see again this this table, so I'm just going to quickly show that to you. And Seva, you might want to describe that. This is the environment. Okay, these are the 5 niyamas here on the left column. Environment, body and action. That's your animal. Yeah, you can think about that, how you are with the animal. This is your speech, your communication, and we might put human there. And this may surprise you or not, but this is angel or spirit at work. And when that's not happening, your mind becomes its own ego, its own superego, its own false identity, and it controls you. Okay, but if the mind would be in service, it's really that window for the spirit and the higher consciousness there. So that's what I'm asking you to look at as we talk through these 5 niyamas. You consider, and you can't fill in everything now. Look at where there's already work happening. Put maybe a little mark where, I can see I'm ready to do some improvement there. And some areas might remain blank for now, like, I don't know about that, I don't know if I'm ready for that, and that's okay as well, yeah? Okay. It's quite difficult, somebody's asked about numbers, it's quite difficult to make an absolute connection. Although in the table that I showed you, things are in boxes, yeah, but remember the diagram, they're interactive, so it's not so easy to put everything into one category. And it's, to me, when I read about the Niyamas and some of the commentaries, I hear it more like a poetry rather than a science where everything goes in. There is a logic, there is a science, there is a technology, but it has a poetic sense. So I'm not saying for sure that I'm going to put everything neatly, tidily into some box. Yeah, teach to master, thank you for that. That's a very good example of a paradox, teach to master. Yeah, totally correct, yeah. I'm not ready. This is a problem in the Aquarian age. We really need to take this seriously because, how to say it, it's very common for people, I can't teach, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough, I haven't studied enough, I don't know enough. This is not going to work. In these times we live in now, it doesn't work. That's a Piscean model, and we have to let that go. We can't continue in that way of thinking. I will become, in level 1 training, you call an instructor, not a master. Yeah. So you just start. You learn the basics. You pass it on, and as you teach, you go through certain changes. It transforms you. So that's part of the paradox. Okay. You develop the capacity by practicing the capacity. Even fake it to make it somehow fits into that same domain of the paradox. Yeah. Making a little note for myself. Yeah. Is there some other? Yeah. So somebody proposed that this is connected to self-initiation, and that's absolutely correct. Yeah. This is for you to practice the dharanas and the yamas and the niyamas, and to go forward to the higher ashtanga, totally requires self-initiation. Okay, I'm going to start going into the topic. Okay, so that means I'm not looking at the chat anymore. I'm working with my notes, and I'm going to go into speaking about that. Okay. So saucha means purity, generally implying good health of body and mind, but also, again, cleanliness in your environment. And purity is not an accomplishment. It's not some final goal, okay? You have to think of it as a process, okay? You are constantly, when you eat to nourish yourself, but at the same time, you have to eliminate, okay? So every day there's a process of rejuvenating, organizing your food. Is like God, generate food that generates, picks you up, food that's especially for different parts of your organs or your glandular system, or something that's organization of the food. And then there is deliver, detox, destroy, food that what then has to clean you out. And of course, you go to the bathroom as a cleansing. So that whole process of how even just simple things of regular going to the bathroom is a sign that the body is in a good flow of keeping itself clean, okay? Maintaining that. So please think of this as a process. Saucha, purity, and I'm not saying that I know this at all, but there's a relationship somehow to the sound, such in the Mool mantra of the Japji, Aaj Sach, God Sach, Hai Bhi Sach, Nanak Hosi Bhi Sach. So if you just try that for a moment, to use that mantra, and you have to start like this, Sach. So the S has to continue. Sach, 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 Sach. Okay? I can already begin to feel in my nervous system and in the space around me. It's like an ionizer, like putting negative ions, which are the good prana ions, into the atmosphere. Just repeating this sound of such. So it's very interesting that many of the sounds that are coming to us from the mantras and Gurmukhi or Sanskrit, Persian sounds and the Shabads, they are not all just random sounds. They're not just culturally common sounds or something. That sound has been used because what it refers to is also what it does as well. So this is a good example of that the very sound of saucha, such, is itself a purifying sound. So this has many dimensions to it. Cleaning the inner body, clean clothes, clean home that you live in, clean speech. And you have to think what that means to you. I'm not the one to dictate it. But what might that mean, to yourself? This thing. Somebody made a lovely comment there about the sound of such, sounding like a shower, having a shower. Dush. Interesting. I think that's French. Dush. Yeah. And then the clean thoughts. What that could mean. Okay. Yeah. And it's true that this mantra was used to, in the triple mantra that Yogi Bhajan referred to unblock the blocks. Yeah. So reciting this mantra, oh, it's such, God, such, because this sounds such, is going to clear the way, clean and clear the way, undo the blocks. Very nice. Okay, there's a lovely phrase. It's just things to help you, and you have to choose like little sutras that help you to really anchor to this, help you to realize this is important. There's an expression in English: cleanliness is next to godliness. Okay, it's just an expression, but if you grew up with that, or you have something similar in your language, you take a hold of that and say, that's important. That's one of the niyamas of yoga. Okay, and also to think this body is the temple of the divine. Okay, so it's very sad sometimes. On one of my trips to India, we went into a Hindu temple, and I was really shocked how dirty it was. It's only little area was clean was around the statue where the god statue was, and they wanted to clean. But everything else was really not kept clean at all. It didn't give me the feeling I want to sit down on the floor and meditate. Yeah. So that cleanliness around you, very, very important. Nature. I personally will link this niyama to nature in the sense of keeping the body healthy, then following the laws of nature, understanding the elements, understanding the seasons, seeing how nature is working, and letting that guide me in terms of the natural laws that might govern what a healthy diet would be. Learning even from animals about how they behave with their food and things like that. So of course, what this points to is a diet that moves through the life, not immediately in a young person, but from tamasic, rajak, and then to a sattvic diet. Yeah, so gradually cleaning up the diet, eating lighter, and keeping things in the body, the process fluid and healthy and clean and clear. And of course, it works both ways. Clean mind is going to make you think twice about what you're doing with your food, or why you're sitting at this dirty table and eating. And a clean body helps you to feel better inside of you, and is going to make you have a different kind of thinking. So also, you've got to see this as two-way traffic as well, yeah, from mind to body, body to mind. Okay, so remembering this idea of moderation. If I'm linking it to nature and such and the negative ions, and this is linked to prana. So this would be linked to pranic body. Those of you who think in numbers will know this is 2 and 8. Yeah, so elimination, fluids. Yeah, tears from the eyes, mucus from the nostrils, in the throat, wax in the ears. So quite connected to the fluids. And water, of course, is used for washing. So it could be quite associated, not only, but quite associated to the water element. Yeah. So, and that's pranic body as well. Okay, prana is energy. Yeah, and energy in itself is clean, is pure. It's just energy. Okay, and the 2 and 8. This is linking to the river, longing to get to the ocean. What happens is we make the idea of things like desire is dirty, desire is wrong, desire is evil. And that is taken it to the extreme. That's not a moderate perspective, okay? So we're not meant to become anorexic, okay? We're not wanting to lead to this starvation of our being. This is not purity, okay? Not at all. There's a complete misunderstanding. What happens is the mind will take a hold of that. The mind becomes involved in this excess of purification. Okay, so, and 8 is infinity. 8 is the pranic body, 8 is infinity. So saucha, practice of saucha, actually is going to make you more open up into the connectedness of the oceanic pranic field as well. So that link to infinity can start to open up for you. Okay, so it's not a practice to become self-important, but it's also not, on the other side, to go into inferiority about, oh, I'm so dirty, I'm not clean, and this is like false humility, putting yourself down in uncleanness, or judging others. Oh, but she's so pure and holy, and I'm not. Or I'm so pure and he's not. Yeah, this is totally doesn't work for saucha. That very superior, inferior thinking is an impurity of mind. Okay, so you take that away, then you're going to find a very different relationship to the idea of purity.
Somebody's asking to clean the body, which food nourishment you would recommend?
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Everybody is different, and everybody with a body should go and have nutritional guidance. That different constitutions, and so what may be healthy cleansing diet for one is not necessarily for another person. The general guidelines of yoga, which is not personal, is sugar, meat, dairy products, processed foods. These are heavy foods, and they are more tamasic, and you want to reduce these processed foods or animalistic foods, and gradually go more to a vegetarian diet of vegetables and fruits and things like that. So that's a kind of global perspective. I'm not going to specify, oh, you should have mung beans and rice diet, the khichdi diet. I knew somebody who did that for 40 days and they just got worse and worse and worse. Somebody else did it for 10 days and they felt, wow, so clean and clear. And I'm watching this other person getting sicker and sicker, and I'm saying, what are you doing? Oh, my teacher told me I have to keep up. I said, no, I think you're going to have to go and see a doctor if you carry on. And he did have to go and see a doctor. So, just one version of one kind of yogic diet is recommended. It's not a recipe for everybody. Okay? That definitely doesn't work. Okay, but the general guidelines are there, and we've said that. Okay. What else? Pranic body, we talked about that. Yeah. So, yeah, wanted to just conclude there that the idea of desire and hunger, and we don't have to starve ourselves, and it's natural to have needs, and you should take care of your needs in a healthy and moderate way. Self-care is part of this. So purity is not only what I don't do, but it includes also what I do. Basic self-care is totally essential for that. Okay. Yeah. So in each of these, you could say wearing white, like a yoga teacher wears white, and many yogis wear white, whether teachers or not. And in different cultures, there's a group of Sufis in Africa, they all wear white. So there's something recognized universally also about wearing white and how it kind of challenges you to that consciousness of purity as well. It's not, nobody says you have to do any of this. It's just a guideline. Let's say these are examples of how you might work on purity. Now, in the sutras of Patanjali, each of these niyamas, Patanjali gives an indication of the results of what comes from this practice. And of course, again, this can be expanded in different ways, but the main focus Patanjali gives, you may have seen the sutras, they're really very brief. One line is telling you everything. That's why there's so many commentaries expanding on them. But what Patanjali says is actually a very brief thing. It's not a whole thesis or something. So he says, through the practice of saucha is coming non-attachment and discernment, the capacity of discernment. Simply meaning like your body's sensitivity is going to know what is good for it and what is not. Yeah, you'll even just approach a food, not even have to taste it, and you will feel, no, my body says not for me, this kind of thing. You will be less identified with the body, okay, because when the body is cleaned, there's more transparency for the spirit, and you'll have more sense of, oh, I am the spirit, I'm not this animal flesh thing, I inhabit it. So the body becomes lighter, cleaner, clearer. Then you can develop that sensitivity to your spirit, and you'll understand the cause and effect of what goes on with your body. How, because you see, if you're going to go to start doing pranayama, it happened like that even. I tell someone, do this breath. And what do you feel? Oh, nothing. Why? Because there's not enough sensitivity and connectedness. Even though I'm not the body, but I'm here. I'm here to be in and feel and connect through the body. And so I come to know the real nature of this body and to develop a very acute sensitivity. Ah, I can feel my liver is a little bit under stress. What I need to do? And I know causes and effects, so I know what I need to do to change that. What was the cause that led this feeling in my liver? And how can I clear it now? And what will I do different tomorrow not to have this feeling again? You become your own doctor. That is really what's going to happen. Yeah? You're going to become your own doctor, because the level of awareness you're going to have around your body is going to be very acute, and in a good way, because if the body is healthy, it feels good to be here. It's not a struggle, not a pain, not a, oh, what a heavy thing I have to carry around in the life. Okay, so is there something else? Yeah, I also think that the saucha, because you get clean, that the real nature of your desire, how much you desire food, love, hugs, money, sex, coffee, anything, you're going to start to realize that, no, there's something more deep, and that's the longing of the soul and the innocence of the soul, purity and linked to innocence. So what's going to come into your awareness is the innocence of your true being and the nature of its longing, that the soul longs for that connecting into the infinity. And the practice of saucha itself starts to already open the barriers, like we said earlier, with undo the blocks. Yeah? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to move on unless there's some question or comment about saucha. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I acknowledge the comments there. Ayurveda is is it a good system? For yogis, that is the most common recommendation to look into Ayurvedic teaching. For some people practice macrobiotics, some people practice a raw diet. There's not one ideal perfect dietary system. You have to get to know your body, start cleaning and clearing and becoming more sensitive, and then you will know. And if it's okay to experiment a little bit and see what you feel. So, okay. Mm-hmm. This idea of anorexia, by the way, is not a modern thing. Somebody is implying that this is a modern understanding of saucha or purity. But even the monks, if you go way back into the Middle Ages or even earlier back, many monks and perhaps even yogis in the mountains, they died young because they went into renounce, avoid the life, avoid the world, eat little, sleep little, and basically they put their body under so much stress that it starts to consume itself, eating of its own flesh, and dying young, which was no reason for that at all, no purpose of that at all. So this is not just a contemporary problem of misunderstanding of purity. It's an age-old problem, and yeah, I think that's important to. Never mind, new age, old age, it doesn't matter. This tendency to go to obsession with anything is a problem, and that's why I said at the beginning to understand the yama and niyama as moderations, practices of moderation.